Welcome to episode 9 of Rethink with Refash. I'm your host, Akanksha Kela Akashi, the founder of Refash, and today I'm sitting down with Shruti Jaipuria, the CEO and founder of Satatki. Satatki is an AI-backed fashion platform that's transforming the way global wholesale works for India's slow and sustainable brands. But before we dive in, don't forget to like and share this episode and subscribe to our channel. Welcome, Shruti.
Hi, thank you for having me. This is so lovely.
Great. So can you take us back to that moment when Satatki was really born? And for people who might not be aware of your platform, what is it that Satatki does?
I think you've introduced it very well. We're an AI-backed fashion platform that's trying to sort of solve for the wholesale market in the international space for a lot of slow and sustainable designers. I'd like to emphasize that piece. So Satatki does that, and that's basically like the bigger goal of it. But otherwise, we work with a lot of young brands that are looking at digitizing who they are, where they come from, their storytelling, their narrative, and then we also help them with the design side. So our focus is 100% a designed in India narrative, not just made in India. And we'd love to see a lot of Indian designers make it in the global markets, work with a lot of, artisans, clusters. That's really who we are. And we'd like the appreciation for it, basically.
Amazing. I think that's the one word that you really stressed upon is appreciation. And a lot of times we talk about manufactured in India, but we don't really talk about designed in India. So how did that sort of come about through your journey?
Well, I mean, I feel like I've said this over and over again, but it's a very important piece of, why this whole movement sort of started, right? Like I come from a manufacturing background. I feel like, the family business has always been into textile manufacturing. However, I've always noticed a lot of members of my family not having to do just that, right? Like manufacture textiles and understand textiles. It's always been about having to give their own opinion about design, colors, what's the next upcoming stuff. If they're exporting in the global markets, they've had to do their own sets of researches. So I've realized that they only get the credit for half of the job when they're doing a lot more than just that.
True.
And so it's just stayed with me. And I was like, is my dad really a designer? Is he an entrepreneur? Is he a manufacturer? I don't even know how to sort of put him into which bucket, right? But over the years, fashion was not my scene. But like over the years, I feel like I've gone and realized that I probably need to study the business side of fashion. And when I did that, like one of the key things that I noticed is internationally, a lot of the design was also happening by designers in India, like designers that were working at buying houses in India, a lot of designers working in the, licensing offices over here. And I realized that, again, we're only being looked at because, and rightly so, sure, like maybe manufacturing is really affordable here. It's quality driven, all of that. But the design piece is also happening over here. So why does it say it is made in India but designed in UK? That's probably not the truth or the full truth, I would say. So it's just something that I felt very, very motivated by. I felt like I needed to sort of dig deeper, read about, learn about. And then I said, okay, you've got artisans that are doing design work, craft work, but you've got a lot of designers who are taking all of that, contemporizing it, making it a lot more global. And who's getting the credit here then? So that's where I just sort of stepped in, and that's why I designed in India, not just made in India.
Lovely. How do you think that through your journey with Satatki, how have you been able to transform that thought process or that perspective?
I haven't fully
what's your intention
at all.
What's the intention?
Yeah, I think the intention, of course, is, you've got to sort of give the designers the credit as much as you're giving the makers the credit.
Yeah.
So I feel very deeply passionate about working with designers who are taking a craft and like redoing it in their own way and then presenting it and making it a lot more, I would say, marketable, commercial, adding a lot more value to the wearer or the buyer, right? Especially in the global markets. And how have we been sort of able to do that is... well, multiple ways. There's no one single way. Firstly, I think like just empowering the designer to like believe in their own designs first, which has been a hard one to crack. The second one, or the second piece I would say, is mostly about how the business side of fashion needs to sort of be something that designers really need to, pay attention to. And I feel like, again, Satatki leads that through a program called Sketch to Store, where we teach them how to price better, how to design better, how to even plan their range a lot better, and think numbers, analytics. I mean, design is not it's great design, but if great design is not really making you the money,
or doesn't sell, then
or doesn't have a wearer, then is it really great design, right?
True.
So again, just how do you sort of put a commercial narrative to that? And again, I'm like a business and a marketing person, so you can sit here and sort of challenge that, okay, it's numbers driven and it's all about the money, but why not, right? I believe like as long as you're doing it ethically and as long as you're sort of like building a business sustainably, then it's important because you do have costs to cover.
Absolutely.
And so we've been able to sort of do that a little bit by working on I think the emotional, psychological health of a lot of our designers, and also the business and the marketing jargon and knowledge base. So yeah.
Is there an example that you can share with us for a designer or a brand that really that came on early on board on your platform, and how did you help them build their journey?
A lot of the brands and multiple different case scenarios, right? So we've had a brand that's come to us, and obviously everyone's aspirational about fashion and their brand, so they want to go global. But we realized that either this is a design problem, or it's basically like, they have the intention and the heart in the right place, but they probably don't have the, I would say, numbers or the money or the funds to be able to sort of do that. So the first goal is, hey, okay, like let's talk about the design, let's talk about the commercials, let's talk about how much do you want to invest, also how, long you have.
Right.
Because I realized that a lot of the designers we work with are passionate about design, but are they really entrepreneurs, right? Like now that takes another level of grit and commitment and
100%.
years of wanting to be in the space and prove yourself over and over again. So I feel like we do a little bit of a discovery chat with them first to try and understand what their knowledge base is. How are they planning on marketing and selling their brand? What have they been doing all of this while? Once we finish that discovery chat, we then sort of talk to them about the goal setting, right? It's literally the first module in our entire program where we're talking about road mapping and strategy. There are different ways to build your business model. One could be online, it could be offline. Today, you've got to have a little bit of an omni-channel setup.
Correct.
So we do that as well. And I think when they are deeply sort of rooted in this is what my foundation for the business sort of looks like, maybe in the next 6 months, 1 year, 1.5 years, whatever that timeline may be, we then lead them on into the next piece of the puzzle, which is everything to do with range planning and design, right? So now, obviously, we all know that online, you do have a bunch of clients that are looking for a specific type of product at a specific price point, right? So not everything that you're designing may end up selling online. So you've got to divide your plan and your, range differently. So the way they sort of think for the online markets are kind of a little bit different from the way they would sort of find a retail partner offline to be able to market themselves, right? And all of that thinking, planning, doing, executing comes in the module 2, which is everything to do with range planning. So we've gotten 2 really key pieces out of the way, right, when they come to us. One is the strategy piece, and then their commitment towards that strategy and how long they want to run with it. And then the second piece is everything to do with the design. So it's a little bit of me and a little bit of you. And then we come to the not so fun part for any creative professional, which is the numbers and the finances. So the third piece has to be numbers, because you could have the best marketing ideas in the world, but if you do not have the funds for it, or you don't know how to build the funds for it, your cash flow literally is a red, right? And that's my biggest piece of worry, because we'd like to make that impact and that difference to taking them global. Quickly, early, yes, but also thinking about the costs and how much we can help you save in the long run. You don't want to do the same things over and over again. As a business, you've got to keep experimenting as well. And then you need to have the funds to sort of experiment also. So it's a little bit of calculated risks and numbers and, analysis that we sort of do, which is all the pricing and the numbers and the cash flow. And then we go into market or take them to market with whatever strategy we want to run. So we do have a framework ourselves. We also do understand how we want to lead this brand into building that framework for themselves. But that framework sort of seems to have worked for a lot of these brands over and over again, right? So no matter what size, scale, time of the year you are in your business timeline, you're able to sort of rely on these modules. You're sort of able to rely on the strategy that we give you just to be able to think more clearly.
Right.
And clarity drives a lot in terms of how you operate and navigate in the business world.
Very interesting.
So yeah, that's how we've been able to sort of do it for.
And what does this timeline look like for a young brand? Does this look like, say, a couple of months or maybe close to a couple of years?
See, if you're asking me in the larger scheme of things, like the B2B piece of things, it's definitely a long-term game. And by long-term, again, everybody's timelines could be defined differently. But I've noticed it does take you about a year and a half or 2 years to be able to break into the international market to a satisfactory level as a young brand, right? But the program in itself, the Sketch to Store program that we're talking about, is essentially a year. Because it takes you that long to be able to understand the changes that you need to make and execute and experiment on the changes that we want you to make as well. So we do give you about a year, and it is a little bit of a foundation, almost like a business crash course for independent designers to build their systems and structure quickly for the international market. But again, we've also seen results and success with a lot of these brands within that year, where we've been able to get them an order, we've been able to sort of sample, had an inquiry, done a trade show as well in the global markets. So honestly, there's no one cookie cutter answer that works and applies to everyone. Someone's really strong with their design sensibilities, so obviously they get noticed faster. A lot of them are fantastic with their pricing and their costing. The designs may not be the best in the world, but enough for someone to feel like, hey, I'm getting a great deal, to want to put my bucks on this brand, right? So multiple things work for these guys, but a year essentially is, I would say, the safe answer for a lot of these guys.
And how did you come up with this entire module or sketch to store piece that you were talking about? And if you were to tell us a little about the business model of Satatki, if you can take us through that.
Okay, sure. To answer your first part of the question, Akanksha, I think it took me that many years of trial and experimentation to realize, hey, somebody else needs to do this, right? So I think you go through that piece of frustration, pain, challenges. And I come from an export family and a background that's been into exports, right? So obviously I've seen the business in the family being built over years, like decades rather. So no 2 days are the same, no 2 years are the same, no 2 quarters are the same. But I realized that if it took me that long, and if it's obviously going to cost you that much more, then there's somebody who needs to help the others make it faster. So the answer to the second part of your question, to how did I come up with the business model? Honestly, I have to give a lot of credit to Madhuri, who's, also technically the co-founder, who's sort of helping us build the data piece. We're still trying to figure out what the designation is, because as a startup, you're doing everything on the job anyway. So she's currently the program manager, we call her. But she's very deeply passionate about education in general, mentoring in general. So I remember, when I sort of paused post the pandemic to sort of reflect and understand what it is that I want to do with these brands and how do I want to sort of help them. She was a very, key piece in the puzzle, became my sounding board. I literally used to talk to her about, this is the pain point, this is the challenge, this is the frustration, and this is really what the outcome needs to be.
Right.
And so we built that program in a manner which is step by step, literally. It's linear when we sort of designed it. And then we realized that, okay, now that I'm giving all of this gyan, where is it really leading, right? So I am more passionate, I think, about closing the loop in fashion, sensibilities and terminology. But it's the consulting piece first, and then we go on to this whole marketing, journey. So it's a little bit of, again, I would say, retainer, but commission on sales, because when you switch the way you're operating and navigating in the fashion world, then you've obviously also got to switch the way the, cash works.
Right.
And so we're a combination of one-time upfront fee payments, because you're learning.
Yeah.
And then you're also becoming the commission and the marketing representatives. So if I bring you a sale, I take the money.
And what were some of the early operational challenges that you faced while building this platform?
The first is just operating differently, and choosing to operate differently. The second, I think, is just been network and connections, which as a young business, you don't have. Either the founder brings it to the table, or the team members bring it to the table, or, it's just something you've got to build.
Yeah.
Now, we all know it's a chicken and egg problem. If you want to build a network and you want to build relationships globally, then you've got to travel that much more. You've got to have the funds to travel. You've obviously got to build that process.
Yeah.
So I did that, and I continue to do that every day. I don't take any network of mine granted. I don't take any relationship of mine for granted. You've got to keep nurturing that. That costs time, money, effort, everything.
True.
So that was a very, very big piece right in the beginning that we've sort of challenged ourselves day in and day out to keep working on. Most of that's also, I think, why, I could say a lot of my designers are not my clients, they're my friends. So that's the second piece I would 100% say. And then the third is money. Right. Like, again, I may sound wrong because I know we're like a more, like a sustainable business, consultant in that sense. But again, to build sustainably, like a lot of it is the commercial, like funding. Where is the money coming from? And we keep a piece of it to pay the bills 100%, but a lot of it goes into building the business again.
Yeah.
Right.
Marketing yourself,
marketing the business, marketing a lot of our clients as well.
Yeah.
Right? So we've got to put in that money as a growing business back into the business in some way or the other. And so, I mean, call it a skill, call it something that I'm learning from my financial mentors as well. But it's just something that you have to keep doing as a founder.
In terms of the designers that you work with, have you seen any sort of recurring patterns with respect to designers who succeeded in the Satatki ecosystem? And how do they manage to balance purpose with product?
Yeah, that's a tough one, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think it's the greatest question you've sort of asked me on this podcast. Very, very meaningful. Thanks for asking that. How have they been able to do it, honestly, is a little bit of us and a lot of them, I would like to say. It has been a constant, I would say, toggle between this is who I am, this is where I want to be, and this is how I want to be. So sometimes we've had to let go of the rein of how we would like for them to operate, but a lot of the times we try and hold on to it as well. It's really like us being their consultants, then marketers, then friends, then therapists, a bit of everything here and there. How have they been? But like, technically, if I have to sort of break this down for you, I would say it really is smart business sense. Okay. And quarter after quarter, season after season, they know exactly where they want to sort of put their money. Do I want to put it on design this season? Do I want to put it on team this season? Do I want to put my money on marketing activities this season? And then which activities, which quarter? Do I want to redo some of my designs and make it a little bit better? Do I want to improvise, or do I want to sort of put it on, pricing similar but adding more value? So it's a lot of hardcore strategic business decisions. Some of them may go wrong, a lot of them may go right. But to be very honest, it's about clarity for sure. So they've been able to do it because they spend a lot of time discussing, thinking, planning, which is a very, very key piece on how you want to grow and navigate globally. You can't just produce. And that's why I say we're not in the fast fashion space. We're working with slow, independent designers. So if you're expecting this design to be produced more and more, we will then step in and say, no, but this is only 100 pieces in the world, or it's only going to be 500 pieces in the world, right? That's it. And then we move on to the next collection. It's not like we don't produce, but we move on to a design innovation. We move on to making a change. We move on to working with a different textile, a different color. And that's because we want to innovate each season. So that's really how they've been able to sort of see the success globally.
Nice.
Yeah.
How do you also, because a lot of the brands that you work with have, are deeply sort of rooted in craft and artisanal, sort of their language. How do you balance their staying true to their core identity while also making sure that they're able to scale and create a commercially viable line?
Yeah. I mean, fun answer, if there are 20 designs that I would like for you to sort of create, then I'm like, okay, you pick the ones that you don't care about if they make money or not, right? So you do your thing, and then I will come in and tell you what to change, right? So I first let them do their stuff, literally, unpack all of that creativity, unleash it all onto paper. And then I'm like, fine, can you now from this give me 5 designs that you do the way I would like for you to do it? Really that. And then I think over a period of time, we sort of find that balance where we're like, fine, I guess I think, Shruti, I should listen to you. And I'm like, I'm not liking what I'm doing. Maybe I should sort of change it a little bit.
But isn't that tough to actually not to have to be in this changing landscape on an everyday basis with all your...
Yeah, in my initial years, it was tough.
Yeah.
But now I think like there's no other way that I now know how to operate. Like, I'm okay with that. Like, they change them. And see, also you're working with creative professionals, so you've got to be a lot more empathetic than you otherwise would have been, right? I'm not in like the space where you're for you, it's all about like making money every day, or like you're dealing with like crores and crores of, worth of things that it's impacting so much. you're in the handloom space, you're working, or like even your clients are working with artisans that, may not really be able to produce the same numbers season after season.
True.
We know that handlooms don't have the similar amount of, quality checks that we need for it to have. And that's the beauty of the craft. So we just have to let go sometimes when you're in that space and be okay with that. And the best way in which you can sort of do that is communicate and be transparent with everybody involved, right? Even your buyers, like we tell them there's going to be a 20% variation from batch 1 to batch 2, and we'll give you your samples and your quality checks in place. You have a look, review it. If you like it, then buy it, but pay us for even that. Like, why would you wait to sort of pay us for the end of it? And we won't produce if you're not obviously, willing to experiment with us.
When a brand wants to go international, is there like a checklist or, certain sort of fundamental elements that you think need to be in place for you to be able to take them international?
Yes, there needs to be. One is, I think, again, will over anything else, right? So you 100% need to be able to want to do this. It shouldn't just come from like a fleeting, I would say, passion or a space of I'm interested to want to do this. It's hard. So you've got to commit to it.
Right.
And then what are you bringing to the table? Is it like psychological commitment? Is it funds? It's like, again, I was having this conversation with this designer the other day where I said, hey, you aspire to buy an Audi, but then if we don't have the money to fuel it, it's just parked in the garage, right?
Yeah.
So have your website, have your brand story in place. Your digital assets need to be 100% on point. Visual language needs to be there. There needs to be a founder story. Otherwise, nobody really cares about why you started up or what product is. And then I feel like you finish all of this piece and then we come to the product, which is obviously the hero as well. So yeah, like all of these business systems, your pricing needs to be sort of unified. We've been able to bring this whole situation to, address it rather, I would say, where, how luxury houses work with pricing being unified, and like everybody knows an LV bag is going to cost a certain value in Italy. It's going to cost a certain value in India. It's going to obviously come at a price in, the US.
All parts of the world, yeah.
Yeah. And we're okay with that little bit of price difference, right? Because while we may not understand why, but we just obviously put it to logistics and transportation and duties and things like that and stuff, right? So I believe we need to operate like that as well as a design house or like a buying house. A lot of the designers need to understand how fair pricing needs to work online, offline, wholesale, retail, globally. So that little bit of a checklist is very, very important. If your design pricing is going to change on an everyday basis, it's going to be, textiles is already fluctuating, right? Your crafts work is already fluctuating. Quantities, the manufacturers are sort of solving for. You give me a large order quantity, I will give it to you at a particular price. But for a design craft and design community where your design sensibility and language is not changing on an everyday basis, you're trying to build that consistency through design. That's the one piece of the variable that it needs to be fixed. So there needs to be a unified pricing, like framework that you first put in place for this number to sort of qualify across the globe for everybody who's looking at it, right? So that is one piece of the puzzle that we solve for them, or you need to come with that knowledge to some extent. And then your product, like I said, so like the fabrics you use, the grade of the fabric you use, the kind of color palettes you're working with, of course, the way you're planning your range, how many tops, how many bottoms. Like if you're working obviously in the jewelry sector, then, your earrings to lockets to like your just overall your categories that you're operating in.
Yeah.
So we break it down literally on the, whole technical side of things to help them navigate that. But that little piece of the puzzle is what we expect for you to come with already.
Okay. So for a brand that is looking to partner with you, what would you say is the one thing that you bring to the table beyond, of course, like we spoke about so many aspects, but the one thing that you'd really like a brand to know that this is what Satatki really brings to the table?
I think knowledge. constantly, right, about the markets and about just how things are operating. Like at the heart of it, I'm a business guy, right? So if you come to me and you tell me, hey, Shruti, I'm struggling with this, my first biggest instinct is to try and help you and find you a solution. But so I'm able to do that because I'm constantly trying to work, like, and everybody behind the scenes is trying to work on finding the right way of doing it, approaches, newer ways of sort of understanding how the markets are operating. So knowledge, and the more and more understanding you have of how the business is running, the easier it becomes for you to become a consultant.
True.
In the space, right? So I'm constantly experimenting, trying to do things, learn from others in the space network. The relationships I build have helped. So we bring that to the table. Knowledge is very, very important for clarity of thought and for you to be able to make decisions on how you want to, take the next step forward. And then the second piece of the puzzle, of course, is just everything to do with, how do you make commercial sense, right? Because again, money drives a lot of your decisions as a business house, as a design house. You can't just operate with beautiful looking aesthetic things if they're not helping you grow and make the money. So we teach you really how to make sense out of the designs you're making, how to make the money in so that you can continue to keep operating sustainably and for a longer period of time.
Fair enough. I think it's important to, while you're building a sustainable brand, you have to sustain yourselves as well.
Passion and profit both.
Yes, I like that.
Yeah.
So what are some of the challenges that you have seen the independent designers face, something that you feel is quite, it's the same for a lot of the designers who come to you, like some sort of challenges that pretty much all of them are facing?
I think, this answer probably would be something that they would love, right? Like, so designers really think that the first step to everything is design, and rightly so. But the biggest challenge is they just don't know who they're designing for. They think they know who they're designing for. So I really, really think that your target audience is evolving, changing on an everyday basis. So it's like who you were designing for one collection ago may not really be the same person you're designing for today. So you've got to upskill and you've got to be aware and you've got to keep doing your empathy interviews and your discoveries and your checks.
As a designer, how do you stay connected to who you're designing for?
You've got to do a bit of everything in terms of that's where omni-channel becomes important. You have to look at your numbers and your data and your analytics, and you have to go to market in ways in which you may not want to, right? So if you as a designer think I'm too cool to stand at a pop-up, you have to do that. If you think I don't want to do, a commission on sale, model of selling my goods to this retail store, you have to do that because you need to understand whether a tier 2 or a tier 3 city is also working for you sometimes and a tier 1 is super saturated. If you think I don't want to put in my money on ads and numbers online, then I'm like, hey, please do that as well because it will really surprise you to know that there is an online taker for your brand also. So how do you stay connected is you have to do everything. And you've got to keep experimenting
to your customers, right?
Yeah. And most of the times you've got to do what you don't want to do as a business or as an entrepreneur, right? Like, I mean, it's the most, I would say, obvious answer, but nobody likes to say it and hear it. You have to 100% do the things that you're not excited about doing as a business.
That's why growth lies as well, right?
Yeah.
We hear that over and over again.
Your audience is changing. I mean, we're not designing for just one set of audience. Like the ones who are buying offline are not the ones who are buying online. And I've said this over and over again. You have to keep designing. Also, who you've been in for the market or who... You don't hit your ideal customer overnight. You hit your ideal customer over years, right? So if you are giving me an answer to one of my questionnaires which says who's your ideal customer, that's like a 20 to 45-year-old, someone who's, sustainable and ethical, how would you know this? Like, I mean, you could be a sustainable, ethical person, but are you operating like that on an everyday basis? No, we're still walking into a fast fashion store and picking up something for an everyday wear. That doesn't necessarily make you non-sustainable.
Yeah. It's also convenience, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you don't know who your true audience is until you've been in the market for a really long time and you don't hit your ideal every day. So you have to keep working on hitting your ideal.
Yeah.
And that's why targeting and being very, very aware of finding that audience, connecting with that audience is the biggest struggle for a lot of these designers, which they need to solve for as quickly as possible, I would say.
What are your thoughts on the impact of globalization in terms of indigenous crafts and local artisans?
Well, I mean, it's obviously done us all a favor, the fact that everybody's looking at India as a manufacturing hub, India as for its crafts and its textiles. I mean, obviously the demands have really improved ever since I walked into the space. Nobody was really talking about Indian crafts as much as they are now, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it existed, yes, but I think it was not very accessible to a lot of people. Only a large number of manufacturers were able to sort of tap into it. Today, I think it's a lot more, it's sort of equalizing a lot of, I would say, the design and the garment maker community,
Right.
rather, right? So, I mean, I'm all for it. I love where it's going. I can see the potential of it in the international market. There's a huge amount of knowledge that's also sort of come through in terms of, hey, I'm looking for this technique, or, this is what I'm understanding. Maybe it's not as much as obviously the, knowledge base here is in India, because it's an Indian craft and a textile-led, technique. But internationally, I think there's a lot of appreciation. There's a lot of demand for it. It's growing. They understand the potential. And I think they're also intrigued by it. Funnily enough, like I find it, kind of amusing sometimes when I'm speaking to an international buyer and they're unable to tell the difference between an adrak or, like a block sometimes. You also have a lot of digital printers doing adraks these days. So it's really fun to be able to sort of help them identify what's what, techniques, textiles, and yes, like it's great.
How do you see designed in India evolve as more than just a hashtag, and for it to really become a movement and something that us Indians are also proud about? Because I mean, do you feel like we are right now?
Not as much as I would have personally liked them to be. But again, because I got into this space very young, right? Like 10 years ago. And it almost feels like I was speaking a language nobody was obviously understanding. From then, we've really come a long way, I would say, right? And again, I'm saying this because I see the privileges I've been able to have studying and living in London. They're way ahead in the UK markets in terms of technology, design, and just contemporary global fashion. And India felt very behind when I came back. But since then, I've really been able to understand how we've been able to sort of catch on to it, and how difficult it's been for an Indian designer to be able to lead that way, because one is just organizing an unorganized market is the biggest challenge that we've all been facing over here, right? Like just being able to sort of talk to a craft community to even see the value in what they're doing, because they themselves believe it's a dying space. Honestly has been tough. So designed in India comes from a very, very deeply personal space, one. But how it's been able to help everybody else globally is, I believe, they felt a lot more empowered, and they've really understood the value of putting numbers to design, because it's hard to design the same thing again and again. And it's hard to obviously understand even where this design came from, right? It's almost like telling maybe a doctor to put a commercial number or quantify his years of experiences because of the number of symptoms and cases he's seen. How do you do that? The only way you can do that is when you've worked with so many patients. So I get it. I understand how difficult it is to quantify designed in India. But I've noticed a lot of designers starting to use it. In fact, a lot of their cloth labels have it. It's not just made in India, it's now designed in India as well.
Lovely.
So it's lovely. I've seen how it's not just a hashtag anymore. And I also realize a lot of my conversations with the manufacturing space, people in the manufacturing textile, the ones who are, hardcore into private labeling, for example, have started to, appreciate that, hey, they don't want to be seen as just manufacturers, because there has been a little bit of a design, trend, work, research, something that's gone that they've brought to the table. So I see it becoming a bigger movement globally, for sure.
And how do you think, in your opinion, how do you balance scalability with sustainability?
I think one is by using price as an indicator. So like I've tried to keep our services, commercially very affordable for a lot of the people who think they need us. But also at the same time, it is a little bit aspirational for someone who's really young, only because it's almost like an Apple product, right? Like you like it, you love it, you want the design of it, it brings you the value, you understand it, but it's not for everyone also. So I'm somewhere there, I would like to say. So I've been able to sort of balance that for the world in that manner, where I try and think, again, passion and profit. But on an everyday basis, operationally, I feel like, again, from a team standpoint, we don't, like we were talking about this, I think, earlier, right? Like, it used to be a little bit frustrating to not have somebody full-time on my payroll, but I realized that I've been able to build this ecosystem where you're able to hire and access and tap into the best talent in the industry and in your space for the job that you need. Their time is not fully your time, but that's also what's fueling them to, give you their best every time you have them on board, right?
True.
So this ecosystem of having part-timers, contractual team members, freelancers who are able to step in and step out on a project basis for you is another way where I'm able to tap into best talent. So that has helped. And I think third is, again, just constantly, I would say, going back to the drawing board and looking at, being very disciplined about, what it is that I want to keep experimenting with quarter after quarter, right? So like 2 years ago, we did this whole offline design launch, I would say. Like nobody knew we sort of existed, but they knew we were there. But we just never did anything on the glamorous side of things because we were mostly the Excel sheets of, the world. So I just said, okay, I'm bored of being behind the scenes. Can we just go to market and show up for ourselves, forget anybody else? So we had this almost a little bit of a museum party at this beautiful luxury resort space for a lot of our community 2 years ago. That's where we launched ourselves. We invited everybody from around the country to be able to come be a part of it. We showcased it like it's a museum, and it became an experiential event for everybody who was there. So yeah, once in a while we try and do things like that. But then today I'm back in that space where I'm like, okay, we really need to make sense of everything that's on the table. The team is growing, the, services are growing, what we're bringing to the table is growing. Maybe we'll do a trade show this season internationally. Maybe we'll write a book next. We don't know. But I try and stay true to constantly experimenting and coming up with what's the most important key thing, not just for our clients, but also for the community globally. Each season, yeah. So
I mean, honestly, I can just see the passion through the way that you're talking, and it's definitely contagious. I'm sure you'll be able to sort of achieve everything that you set
Very
out.
kind of you. Yeah.
What is the one thing that you hope that people remember you in terms of your work 50 years from today? If someone had to think about Satatki, what is the one thing that you think that they remember you for?
Oh, 50 years from here. No, I think, Satatki, I think the messaging lies in, the name itself, right? Satat in Hindi is sustainable and ki from Japanese is spirit. So I would like for us to be remembered as a community that has been sustainable in just the way we've, operated, navigated ourselves, worked with a lot of people around, built this whole community and this ecosystem of everybody who's worked with us in some way or the other. And I think enriched lives more than anything else. And because I'm so deeply passionate about, I like the design side of it, and I also like the business side of it. I don't know where I personally stand, right? And so Satatki for me is my route to be able to do a little bit of everything. And so I just like to be remembered as somebody who did that and did that well for everyone else, not just for ourselves. So yeah, that should, I think, be enough.
Is there a way that you market yourself and get more brands, or is it mostly through word of mouth that you see brands actually coming to you? What is that combination really?
Well, it's been in the initial years, obviously we've done a lot of outbound marketing, right? We've gone there, we've reached out, we like a brand, we're like, hey, we're here to help, we'd like to work with you.
Yeah.
And done that little bit of cold pitching, of course, like every business should. Sure. Touchwood, though, today we're in that space where I think our social is really working for us. And then referrals is a very, very big part and key part of how we have a lot more independent designers coming to us. Some of our clients are so nice enough to just be like, hey, you have to work with this person. And so they bring us the clients. So we've been able to put a little bit of a referral commission on board as well for whoever's helping us build the community as well.
Interesting.
But mostly it's just been organic in the last, I think, 3 years of our existence, where I meet so many people and they're just like, okay, this is fun, we should have someone, or we know someone who needs you, and that's how it happens. Social and referral today. But we've done our set of cold pitching and outreach and marketing. And we do that once in a while as well. Like any new sales intern that wants to join us, I think that's the first job that we put them on, right? Go pitch us to 20 brands and see where you stand and learn from there. But
Nice. At the macro level, how do you think sustainability will kind of lead the way or win in the larger scheme of things, with respect to sort of global fashion?
Yeah, again, I may sound controversial when I sort of say this, right? But I 100% think sustainability is like it doesn't define why somebody would purchase or buy your product. It's just who you should be.
Right.
Right? Because it's a philosophy, it's a way of being, it's a way of operating. So, again, see, I come from a textile manufacturing space, so it's difficult for obviously me to fully understand why we only need to be handloom, right? Why not mill? Yes, we're supporting handlooms, but we could do like a bit of mill as well. And viscoses, there's like a huge, hue and cry about how it's not the most natural and the most sustainable fabric out there and all of that. But for me, sustainability, to be very honest, in the longer scheme of things, larger scheme of things rather, is just something that I believe everybody should be. Like it's the way you operate and the way you sort of navigate. It's not the reason in the fashion space that somebody should buy. And that's how I operate, right? Like I like a design, I would pick it up. But if it's made cheap or if it doesn't make me feel good, then I wouldn't buy it, no matter what price it comes at, right? So,
but there's also the price barrier that comes with something which is
100%.
sustainable, right?
To be very honest, fashion is not cheap. It's not a cheap industry to be in. It's been made to see like it's cheap because someone's not being paid fair. And that's how your product is becoming affordable for you.
True.
But it's fashion in general is not a cheap industry to be in. Like it's expensive to make clothes because it takes time, and time comes at a price. And that fiber has taken that much time to grow. Right?
I agree with you. I mean, I say this often as well, that we think that products that are designed sustainably or ethically are more expensive because the comparison is so cheap, and that's the problem.
Yes.
What you're comparing it to is the actual problem.
Exactly. So I always peg us to global markets. Like I stop pegging us to another Indian brand sometimes. So again, when an independent brand comes to us, they're like, okay, but we want to compete with XYZ. And I was like, wait, you're competing with your peer. Like you need to compete with another local Spanish brand, for example, because the buyer sitting over there needs to see who you are, like what your worth is there. Why would they export you all the way just for design if they don't think that you're coming at a price that's affordable, better, and easier for them to sort of want you over a local brand?
True.
So you're not competing with somebody in your own market. You're competing with someone globally in their local market. And that's how you sort of have to constantly keep, working on the sustainability side of things, right? Like how do you make something better, more commercial, more, accessible, democratize, textile to the extent where, okay, I'm working only with this textile because now I understand it fully. I understand the potential of this, fit, form, flow that this fabric is going to give me, as opposed to just choosing because it's sustainable or eco or like natural or plant-based. Right? So,
if you had to create a checklist for a brand that you think, do these 5 things and you will succeed.
Yeah.
Do you think you could come up with something like that?
Just 5? Maybe not.
But the most important or like core things that
the brands need?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure, I could. Would you like me to sort of like just say it at the top of my mind now? 100%, like at least have some amount of fund in your bank account for the next 1 year, like 2 seasons minimum. Give yourself that much time to see some bits of success. Second, be willing to be open to, like receiving feedback from not just consumer, but outside of the consumer space, right? Yes, I understand consumer is king, but like you need to understand, listen to a consultant, for example, or like somebody who's not from a design background, because they're also giving you some food for thought. Third, I 100% think a designer needs to be technically sound, right? A designer, if you don't understand garment construction, fit, form, flow, then it's difficult for you to, make it in the fashion world. So upskill yourself technically. That's the third piece. The fourth is the business. So I would like to plug ourselves in there. Come to us. We'll teach you how to do the business. So you have to understand your systems and, the team and how you're operating, how you're going to make it this big, right? So it's dreams right at the top. And then what's your roadmap to that dream?
How you execute it.
That's your second piece in the entire pyramid, right, I would say. And at the bottom of it all, like your foundation, 100% is, just passion, right? If you are deeply passionate about wanting and emotional about wanting to make it, then you will make it.
True.
Even if I don't exist, even if, like you don't have a consumer, you'll somehow find a way to be able to reach the top.
Yeah.
So that's
that.
the foundation.
And what is your vision for Satatki in the next 10 years, 20 years? Where do you see yourself? Where do you see the brand?
I'm talking about sustainability over here, or sustainable business. I would just say, like, maybe in the next 1 year, I'd like to continue to keep surviving.
I'm sure that's going to happen anyway.
Yeah. No, but what's my vision? Obviously, improve the numbers and number of Indian designers I take to the world. That's 100% sure. Today, if like every 10 designers come to us, we see success with maybe 4, 5 of them. But I'd like to improve that number for sure. Like maybe all of my babies need to succeed. That's one. And second, I think I would like to become a lot more, I would say, move into the education space a little bit more. I feel like we're doing the marketing and we're doing all of the execution stuff for the designers on the business side of things, but I don't think we do enough on teaching them how to do it better. So maybe go much younger, like, go to the grassroots level, work with colleges, work with institutes.
You spoke about a book.
Yeah. Everybody's reminding me about this book that's in the works. We definitely would like to, pen our thoughts on sketch to store, how to operate, how to navigate. That book is in the works. Hopefully we should have something by end of this year, early next year for the world. That's just our way of giving back to the community in some form. So next 10 years, and a fashion film, I think, on the business of fashion. I think we don't, again, talk too much about it. We talk about the making and the design. I feel like we need one film that's a complete film for, all aspects of it. Sketch to Store helps us sort of plug everything in together. So we'd like to do a fashion film, our own documentary.
Great. I'm so excited to see what the future holds.
Thank you, Akanksha.
And this has been a lovely conversation. I've had a lot of fun.
Yeah, same here. It's been like so deeply reflective, insightful for me as well because of the questions you've asked me. So thanks for having me, really.
Great. That's a wrap for today's episode. We hope this discussion inspired you to rethink your role in shaping the future of fashion. Remember, change starts with us, and it's time to make choices that matter. Until next time, keep rethinking and subscribe so that you don't miss out on the next episode.